backlash against a major 15% price hike from npower. Over 1 million customers will pay £100 more for gas and electricity, with a warning other firms may follow suit.
This is one of the biggest price hikes by one of the big 6 energy companies for many years.
Also tonight, a Royal Marine from Northern Ireland pleads guilty to terror charges, including bomb-making. Paris on alert after a knife-wielding man shouting in Arabic is shot by a French soldier outside the Louvre. And Tadcaster reunited as a community split in half by flood damage comes together at last.
This is the ITV Evening News with Ranveer Singh.
Good evening. The government and the energy regulator have criticised npower for raising its prices by up to 15%, adding more than £100 to the bill of an average dual-fuel customer. The company blames rising wholesale energy prices, but Ofgem points out that they buy their supplies far in advance and it sees no case for the rise. A Downing Street spokesman said the government is concerned and is prepared to act if necessary. Our consumer editor, Chris Choi, reports.
At the coldest time of the year, a £109 price rise for more than 1 million energy customers, and new warnings more will face similar increases. This is how one unhappy npower customer got the news today.
Very annoyed. I think it's absolutely shocking to be hiking up the price that much. I just think it's disgraceful.
The scale of npower's price rise has shocked observers. Standard tariff electricity prices go up 15% from March, gas prices by 4.8%. It means dual-fuel variable tariff bills rise by 9.8%, affecting 1.4 million customers.
Life can be complicated. Energy shouldn't be.
npower says this is its first rise since 2013, but the energy watchdog says there's no justification for significant increases in this industry, and the MP who chairs Parliament's Energy Committee agrees.
This is one of the biggest price hikes by one of the big 6 energy companies for many years. And when you think that npower is constantly at the bottom of the league table for customer service, I don't see how they can possibly justify this.
Smart meters are here.
npower says government policies like smart meter installation are one factor driving up costs. Along with rising wholesale prices is expected to mean more increases.
Unfortunately, I think it's almost guaranteed. We've already seen EDF announce a price rise. We've seen npower today, a number of smaller suppliers, and we've got 3 big 6 suppliers freezing their prices until the end of March, and I think that respite is going to stop at that point.
And as bills rise, it turns up the pressure for more regulation of Britain's power giants.
Well, Chris, clearly lots of criticism of npower today, but can anything actually be done about it?
Well, I think that is precisely the question being asked by beleaguered bill payers. Of course, they're sick of these kind of price rises, but also weary, I think, of people like government and industry watchdogs who express concern and have inquiries, but seem to change so little. I mean, only days ago, Ofgem, the industry watchdog, said that big companies aren't affected by the big wholesale price rises because they buy their supplies in advance. But in Ofgem's own words, Ofgem does not have a role in setting energy prices, nor do we regulate suppliers' profits. So what about the MPs? Well, they've had a report from competition officials for months into the energy market. They're considering things. Maybe today's news will urge them to act more quickly. And at the centre of the whole debate are this core 66% of customers who remain on those standard variable tariffs, rather like this one, paying far more and giving the energy companies far more profit than is available on so many other deals.
A real frustration at the heart of this, isn't there, somewhere? Thanks very much, Chris. A Royal Marine from Northern Ireland has admitted hiding explosives to be used in a dissident Republican terror attack. Kieran Maxwell was found to have bomb-making instructions and lists of potential targets when he was arrested last August. Today, he pleaded guilty at the Old Bailey to preparation of terrorist acts. Martha Fairley has more.
Explosives, timers and detonators. These are the component parts of deadly homemade bombs intended for a terrorist attack. Their discovery, along with ammunition and anti-personnel mines hidden in barrels in 2 country parks in County Antrim, led police to serving Royal Marine Kieran Maxwell. Today, by video link at the Old Bailey, the 31-year-old, who's said to have links to dissident Republicans, pleaded guilty to the preparation of terrorist acts. The first known incident of Republican terrorists infiltrating the armed forces.
How did someone with this background escape the vetting to get into an elite unit in the Marines? And secondly, what kind of security is there on Marine bases that he was able to smuggle out explosives, arms, etc.?
When Maxwell was 16, he was badly injured after an alleged sectarian beating in Larne, where he grew up. But by 2011, he joined the Royal Marines and began to stash explosives in a dozen hides in Northern Ireland and near his home in Devon. Now he faces jail, and the armed forces face uncomfortable questions about security and vetting procedures. Martha Fairley, ITV News.
The Louvre Museum in Paris went into lockdown today with hundreds of tourists inside after an apparent terror attack on French soldiers nearby. Police say when the soldiers stopped a man from entering the museum's shopping centre, he attacked them with knives, forcing them to shoot him. Grant Vincent has the latest.
Underneath the most famous museum in the world, soldiers stand over a man they've just shot. They'd stopped him at an entrance to the Louvre. Then he drew a machete and charged at them, shouting Allahu Akbar, God is great. The French authorities were in little doubt.
Visiblement dans le cadre d'une tentative d'attaque à caractère terroriste.
The attack was terrorist in its nature, said the Prime Minister. And so the streets around the museum were flooded with the security forces. No one knew at this stage whether this was just one man acting on his own or the start of something bigger. Inside the museum, hundreds of visitors were told to stay where they were. The building was eventually evacuated after security checks were carried out and the all clear was given. The seriously injured attacker was taken to hospital. He's reported to be an Egyptian national who arrived in France just a few days ago.
He
was going to hurt people, said the mayor of Paris, but we have learnt to react to such threats with extreme efficiency. Hundreds have died in terror attacks in France over the last 2 years. A state of emergency has put soldiers on the streets, standing guard over landmarks. What happened at the museum looks like a disturbing demonstration of how necessary they have become. Geraint Vincent, ITV News.
The United States has announced new sanctions on Iran in response to their recent ballistic missile test. President Trump once again ignored diplomacy for a blunt declaration on social media, saying President Obama had been kind to Iran, but he wouldn't be. Here's our Washington correspondent, Robert Moore.
Donald Trump is now facing his first significant foreign policy challenge: how to punish Iran for its ballistic missile test without putting the 2 countries on a collision course. The decision to impose unilateral targeted sanctions against companies linked to the Revolutionary Guard and to Iran's missile program has the risk of undermining the painstakingly negotiated Iran nuclear deal. A short time ago, the White House spokesman not only defended the move, but criticized the very deal that much of the world has hailed as a diplomatic breakthrough.
And I think today's sanctions really represent a very, very strong stand against the actions that Iran has been taking, and make it very clear that the deal that they struck previously was not in the best interest of this country, and that President Trump is going to do everything he can to make sure that Iran has stayed in check.
That followed a warning via Twitter that Trump aimed at Tehran. Iran is playing with fire, he wrote. They don't appreciate how kind President Obama was to them. Not me. 2 weeks since the inauguration, And it's already clear that US foreign policy is heading in an unpredictable new direction.
Is it going to be the Obama foreign policy? Forget about it. Okay? That's not going to happen. This is really a significant change from what we're going to see.
69 true at 16.
The danger is that an escalating war of words or military gamesmanship in the waters off Iran, like we saw this summer, could lead to miscalculation and confrontation.
No response.
Robert Moore, ITV News, Washington.
Today in Malta, Theresa May briefed EU leaders on her recent talks with President Trump. She also spoke to the German Chancellor Angela Merkel and others about Brexit, promising a strong partnership with the remaining members of the EU. Our Europe editor James Mates has been in Malta with the Prime Minister. James, Mrs May's the only leader, of course, to have met President Trump so far at the White House. Was she able to reassure them about his relationship with Europe?
Well, to an extent, this is the first meeting, of course, since Donald Trump took over in the Oval Office, and considerable concern here about what this means in the light of these first few weeks for transatlantic relations. Now, they certainly welcome the fact that Mrs May, on her visit to Washington, managed to swing him more firmly behind NATO. But on the other hand, she's also seen to be cozying up to a man who wants to see the breakup of the EU. And that may not help when it comes to the Brexit talks. When she was asked about this, she was very happy to talk about the NATO aspect, the other bit, not so much.
I think it's important that we got the 100% commitment to NATO because NATO has been so crucial in keeping the security, protecting the security, not just of the UK but also of Europe, and will do so in the future. But as we look to our negotiations, what I want to build with the EU is a strong partnership. We want a strong continuing EU and a strong partnership because we're not leaving Europe, we're leaving the EU.
But she was rather more forthcoming in private, we're told, saying that, look, we have to deal with this patiently and constructively. He is still the leader of an ally, and if we just get into confrontation with America, we will end up only helping those who want to harm us. And I think for the time being, she has been given the benefit of the doubt on that. But if the Brexit talks don't go so well, if there's a sign that she's working alongside him to help break up the EU rather than make it a success, well, that would augur very badly.
James Mates, thank you. Delta Calm on the ITV Evening News. The whale found dead off the coast of Norway with more than 30 plastic bags in its stomach. And thanks to the reopening of Tadcaster Bridge, why one commute has got a lot shorter and cheaper.
At one point I forgot about the speed camera and I've got a £100 speeding fine and 3 points on my licence.
You're a menace.
Yes, I am.
Those stories and more after the break. Welcome back. A stranded whale has had to be put down off the coast of Norway after marine biologists found it was severely malnourished. They've now discovered why. Inside the dead whale, there were more than 30 plastic bags and other plastic waste, some of which appears to have come from the UK. Paul Davies reports.
The sorry end of a creature that shouldn't really have been in the shallow waters off Norway and appeared fatally underweight and malnourished. Something had gone dreadfully wrong for this young goose-beaked whale. Scientists were looking at a marine mystery, but their autopsy soon revealed the shocking answer. This is what they found in the whale's stomach, more than 30 plastic bags. Lead zoologist Terje Liesverland says all this plastic had blocked the whale's intestines. It couldn't eat and would have been in dreadful pain. Some of the rubbish originated in Norway and Denmark, but many bags had come from Britain. Wrapping for chicken and a multi-pack of Walker's crisps here. The death of one whale underlining what conservationists say is an ever-growing threat to our oceans.
I could see plastic everywhere. We were in what we thought was a relatively pristine environment.
The issue of marine plastic pollution is a huge problem and it's a growing problem.
Unless urgent action is taken, it's predicted that there could be more plastic than fish in our seas by 2050.
Campaigns to stop the polluting of the oceans come too late for this whale and for dozens more washed up on Europe's beaches. Paul Davis, ITV News.
Singer Michael Buble has revealed his son Noah's cancer treatment is progressing well 3 months after the toddler was diagnosed with liver cancer. In the first official update since Buble and his wife broke the news of the 3-year-old's condition, they said his doctors are very optimistic about his future. Parliament is set to debate a motion of no confidence in the governance of the Football Association. The Culture, Media and Sports Select Committee will address whether the FA can comply fully with its duties when it meets next week. And the England cricket captain Alistair Cook has been awarded a CBE by Prince Charles in a ceremony at Buckingham Palace. The sportsman has described the investiture as a very proud moment. Shoppers are finding empty shelves in the vegetable section of many supermarkets tonight. Staples like lettuce and broccoli are in short supply after bad weather in southern Europe has led to a poor harvest. It's led to price increases and rationing of vegetables shops are able to sell. And experts say the crisis could continue until at least April. Sally Lockwood explains.
Whether it's iceberg, romaine or a baby gem you're into, you may have to get used to going without. Cold weather in Europe has left lettuce and some vegetables in short supply, and some supermarkets have had to ration sales.
I sent him to Tesco just across the road where we live, and he said there's no lettuce. I said, how can there not be lettuce? There is plenty lettuce in Tesco. Then I put on my coat and I went downstairs, there was nothing.
And some market traders can't afford to stock lettuce at all.
So I usually end up going like 2 for 50p and getting my money back, because we don't sell a lot of iceberg. But at this moment in time, I wouldn't have it anyway, because they're asking sort of like 120, 130 each at the market.
And this is why floods followed by freezing conditions in Spain has left crops devastated. Out of season, around 80% of the EU's fresh produce comes from southern Spain. But stocks are down to 30 to 50% of normal levels, with shortages expected to last until April.
It has been the worst weather pre-Christmas and after Christmas in Spain for 30 years. With regard to rainfall and snowfall, it's unprecedented.
And of course, a short supply means a rise in price. In some cases, the cost of lettuce is now nearly 3 times as much. But this is just one issue. After we leave the EU, prices could rise even further still, and we could become reliant on goods from even further afield. But for now, signs like this may replace your lettuce until our season begins in the spring. Sally Lockwood, ITV News.
Finally, the two sides of the North Yorkshire town of Tadcaster were reunited today, just over a year after record flooding destroyed the 300-year-old bridge that was the vital link between them. Residents were told they'd have to struggle with a 16-mile detour for up to 2 years, so they were thrilled to see the reconstruction completed in almost half that time. Our reporter Damon Green is there tonight. Damon.
Well, if ever a bridge was vital to the life of a town, it is this one. Tadcaster has grown up around this crossing over the River Wharfe, and because of the way it's grown up, many people live on this side, the east side of the river. The shops, businesses and schools are on the other side. When this bridge was destroyed by flooding 13 months ago, it was a devastating blow, and today, the day it reopened, simply couldn't come soon enough. When you set a deadline for a grand reopening, you know that with an hour to go, somebody will still be working flat out, a job that should have taken 24 months, and they did it in 12.
Go on, get going.
This was why the moment on December the 29th, 2015, when the famous old bridge over the River Wharfe collapsed under the strain of 5 days of flooding, leaving the historic North Yorkshire town of Tadcaster cut neatly in two. Melvin's carpet shop is on one side, but not his home. He was more excited than most about the big day.
I live at that side, so I have to either travel round or park my little van in the car park and then walk to work. So it's just been a total divide.
For 13 months, if you wanted to drive from the west side of town to the east, this is the detour you had to take. 16 miles in total, and on a bad day, well over half an hour to complete a journey that ought to take about 20 seconds. And for the motorists of Tadcaster, if they weren't careful, it cost them more than just time.
At one point I forgot about the speed camera and I've got a £100 speeding fine and 3 points on my licence.
You're a menace.
Yes, I am.
And so to the big moment, the tarmac all laid, the white lines painted, and the school children poised to become the first to cross the ceremonial red ribbon. A joyous occasion, and for the hundreds of townsfolk who'd come to witness history being made, a moment to be proud of the place.
Very exciting, beautiful, wonderful, happy, lovely.
Nice to
all
see it
together.
all joined back together
yes, again. It is, it's lovely.
East and West reunited once more, a town that was divided, now made whole. Damon Green, ITV News, in North Yorkshire.
Yeah, smiles all round. That's all for now. Julie Etchingham will be here with the news at 10, but from me and all the team here, have a very good evening. Bye-bye.